If you're anything like me, over time, you just collect a lot of plugins. And I've got probably 20 different manufacturers here. And in some of these folders, the Waves one has, gosh, I don't know, there's probably 100 at least plugins in there. Keeping track of all of it just becomes an overwhelming experience, and you end up with just too many options to pick from whenever you go searching for a plugin. Believe it or not, Logic has a beautiful way of solving this issue. It's probably taken me about 10 years of using Logic to finally figure out how to use this feature. But man, now that I know how to use it, I am never going back. Before we move on any further, I'm excited to let you know that this video is sponsored by Atmosphere Mixing. Atmosphere Mixing is my mixing company that specializes in Dolby Atmos and spatial audio. Now I know most of the people watching this video probably aren't looking to have someone else mix their music because that's what you do. However, if you want to hear what your music could sound like in Dolby Atmos, go to atmospheremixing.com and check it out. I'm also offering a $100 referral reward. If you know someone looking to get their songs mixed in Dolby Atmos, or just someone who needs a good professional mix, send them to my website, atmospheremixing.com, and make sure to tell them to mention your name, and I will Venmo you $100. All right, let's get back to the video. The way I've always gone about going to my plugins is just going to this audio effects section, going down to audio units, and then picking from the different company or whatever it is, finding my plugin, scrolling down, finding it, and that's how I get to my plugins. There have always been these general folders here, but all they've ever had in them is just the stock Logic plugins, and while some of them are useful, most of the plugins that I rely most heavily on aren't in there. Those folders that they have are completely customizable. See, I have a mastering folder with a bunch of different plugins from a bunch of different companies in there, and it's so convenient. You can make these be absolutely whatever you want them to be. So I'm going to show you how now. All you have to do is go up to Logic Pro, Settings, and then Plugin Manager. In here, you have these categories, and you can go in here and double click, and you can rename them to be whatever you want. You can delete folders, add folders. Then what you do is just go down to this manufacturer folder settings, which are the folders you would normally go to find your various plugins. And let's just say Waves, go through here and say, gosh, I really want this GTR Stomp 2 for whatever reason to be in a saturation folder. You just grab it, drag it over there, and then if you go into it, saturation, GTR2, it's right there. It's that simple, and you can make this whatever you want. This feature of having the folders with the designated plugins that I want for various things, you can have plugins in multiple folders. So you can say you could make just a vocal group and have all your vocal plugins in there that you're going to go to. It just saves so much time instead of having to go through, search through all the different manufacturers, find the plugin you want. Trust me, spend 5 or 10 minutes doing this once and it will save you time every single time you mix. Totally worth it. Honestly, that's really all there is to say about the plugin manager, but just to give you guys a little extra, I'm going to show you some of my favorite plugins that I have in those folders. These plugins are on every single mix I do. Since this is a Logic tutorial in the first place, the first one is going to be a built-in stock Logic plugin that I could not love anymore. It's brand new with the new Logic 11. You have to try it out. It's called Chroma Glow. This is a stock saturation plugin built into Logic that I find competes with the very best of all the other plugins I have. In fact, these days, this is my go-to. I have Decapitator, I have Saturn, I have a whole bunch of the greats, but this thing rocks. If we just take a look here, there's a few different models that it has. My favorite is magnetic for that tape sound. I tend to like colorful, although clean is wonderful as well. I tend to drive it pretty hard and then set the mix pretty low to get whatever sound I'm going for. I'm going to show you a quick before and after of this plugin on snare drum. This is a mix I did for a church that had a live service. They multi-tracked it and then just wanted to get a more professional recording for this Father's Day song that they did. And so I'll just start with the plugin off and show you what it does turning it on. To me, it just adds incredible depth and somehow even like some clarity. It does beautiful things, and I've honestly not really found anything that this thing sounds bad on. So try this one out. It's free with Logic. Could not recommend more. Moving on to the second plugin I couldn't live without, it's gotta be this plugin called the Kirchhoff EQ. Now, everyone loves talking about the Pro Q3 from FabFilter, and that's an awesome EQ. I just think of this one as like the Pro Q3 on steroids. So as you can see, I've done a crazy curve here on the snare to get the sound I want, and it can do, you know, as far as I know, like unlimited bands, crazy whatever stuff. But that's not really the awesome part about this plugin. Obviously, that's neat, but if you go in and you add the plugin, you will see that it has some interesting features. So obviously you can go to the types, and there's a whole bunch of pretty standard types when it comes to the plugin. I mean, there's some cool stuff, like there's just a notch, and there's this like sword thing that you can do like a weird notch shape. But really what's interesting is further down here. So if you wanted to say have an E-type SSL EQ right in here, you can do that. And it's not the whole EQ. You can have individual bands be different things. So we're gonna have, you know, an SSL for the mid-range, and maybe we want to do like a Neve top. So we can have like the Neve smoothness, some SSL, good thickness and warmth, and you can mix and match whatever you want. There's a whole bunch of different options in here. It basically is Pro Q3 with more. I love this thing. It goes on absolutely everything. One of my favorite plugins for mastering, the plugin that if I could only have one plugin on my master bus, it would be this plugin, is the God Particle plugin. This plugin was designed with the help of some of the top mixing engineers in the industry, and the goal with this plugin was to be able to replace the analog mastering chain that they'd used their entire career. So this plugin just sounds incredible on everything. It just warms it up nicely. It smooths things out nicely. It honestly gives that analog warmth and depth and feel to it, as well as having a great limiter in there and a little bit of EQ if you want to use it. This thing's awesome. So I'm going to do a before and after of this plugin with and without. Now, the way I have it set up right now, it adds a ton of gain. And so I just have a gain plugin that I'm going to kind of swap in and out when I'm not using this, that I've tried to match as closely as possible, but you'll get a good vibe for this whole thing. All right, here we go. Starting without first. Just notice the low end is thicker and just warmer. Let's go again. Just does good things. So anyway, this is the God Particle plugin. Could not recommend it enough. And finally, my last plugin that we're going to talk about today is the Tonal Balance Control Pro plugin. All this plugin is basically a meter that shows you the general curve of your overall mix and then gives you basically a reference space. So as you can see, there's a top and a bottom because, you know, mixes don't need to be a perfectly flat line across this thing. If you're generally within this area, you're doing things largely correct, and you can see trends in your mix in this, which is the thing that I like about it most. This keeps me on track when I'm mixing to make sure that when I get to the mastering process, we're not completely off base and having to basically remix the song to make things make sense. There's not really a way to do a before and after for this one, so I'll just show you what it looks like at the very end of my chain.
And now you've grown, how time does fly. I can't believe it's true. The God would trust a man like me with you. 'Cause I won't always get it right, I never have. I'm still learning from my dad.
All right, so my takeaways from looking at it after playing the song are basically, first of all, you know, for the most part, the line stays within the general recommended curve that it has. And so I'm in the ballpark, but I did notice that there was a bit of a dip around that 2K region that when the vocals were in, kind of went away a little bit. And I do think that I'm compensating for a little bit of a, it's a live vocal. It's not an ideal recording environment or anything like that. There's a little bit of harshness in the vocal. And I may be compensating for that by cutting out things in the instruments. But that's also something that I might want to take a look at before sending it to the client. So anyway, this is one of my favorite plugins that just keeps me on track when I'm mixing and make sure things don't get way too out of line. If you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a like. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and go ahead and leave me a comment for if you knew about this trick already and if you have any other Logic Pro tricks that you might think would be helpful for people. And also, what are your go-to plugins when it comes to mixing? All right, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time.